Have you ever wondered what truly sets remarkable individuals apart from the rest? Is it their wealth, their status, or perhaps something deeper, something more intrinsic? The great Stoic philosophers, like Marcus Aurelius, believe that true greatness lies not in outward appearances, but in how one conducts oneself in every moment of life. Imagine being seen not just as another face in the crowd, but as a person of profound character, integrity, and wisdom. How would that change the way others perceive you? How would it transform your interactions, your relationships, and ultimately, your destiny? In this video, we will explore 7 Stoic principles that have the power to transform how others view you forever. From mastering your emotions to living with unwavering integrity, from embracing simplicity to showing empathy and compassion. These timeless teachings will guide you towards becoming the best version of yourself. Ready to discover the secrets of the Stoics and change your life for the better? Let's dive in. 1. Master your emotions. Let us begin with the foundation of all Stoic wisdom, mastering your emotions. Imagine yourself in the bustling streets of ancient Rome, where chaos is a constant companion. Merchants shout, horses neigh, citizens argue, and the occasional stray cat darts across your path. In such an environment, it would be easy to lose one's temper, to let frustration or anger take hold. But a true Stoic knows that real power comes not from controlling others, but from controlling oneself. I recall a day, many years ago, when a heated argument erupted in the Senate. The room was filled with voices raised in anger, fingers pointed in accusation. It was as if a storm had swept in from the sea, and I was standing in the eye of it. The senators shouted over each other, their faces red with fury. I could feel the tension rising in my own chest, a familiar heat behind my eyes. I was tempted for a moment to join them in their rage, to let my voice rise above theirs and impose my will. But then I paused. I remembered the teachings of my Stoic mentors, Seneca, Epictetus, and my own reflections. I asked myself, what good will come of my anger? Will it solve the dispute? Will it bring clarity or wisdom to this moment? The answer was clear. Anger would only add fuel to the fire. And so I chose a different path. I took a deep breath, calmed my racing heart, and spoke with a voice of reason, not rage. The room fell silent. My words were not louder than theirs, but they carried the weight of calm authority. And in that silence, a space was created. Space for dialogue, for understanding, for resolution. This is the power of mastering your emotions. When you remain calm in the face of chaos, others take notice. They see you not as another voice in the shouting crowd, but as a beacon of stability, a source of wisdom. They begin to trust your judgment, respect your demeanor, to see you as a leader, not a follower of passion. Imagine now a young Roman soldier standing guard at the city gates. He is mocked by a group of rowdy citizens, taunted and insulted without cause. His blood begins to boil, his hand tightens around the hilt of his sword. But then he remembers his training, his Stoic teachings. He remembers that it is not the words of others that define him, but his response to them. He takes a breath, releases his grip, and stands firm, unflinching. The citizens grow bored with their game and move on, leaving the soldier standing tall, his dignity intact. Or think of a Roman mother, overwhelmed by the demands of her children, her household, her duties. She feels anger bubbling up inside her like a pot about to boil over. She wants to shout, to release the pressure, to let everyone know just how much she has endured. But she remembers the words I often wrote in my journal. The best revenge is to be unlike him who performed the injury. She takes a moment, steps outside, and breathes in the fresh air. She lets the cool breeze calm her, so that when she returns, she is ready to handle her tasks with grace, not anger. Her children notice her calmness, her composure, and they too begin to act with more patience, more respect. Now let's be honest, mastering your emotions is not easy. It's not something that happens overnight or even after a few days of practice. It's a lifelong journey. Even I, as an emperor, had my moments of weakness. I remember once, during a campaign on the frontier, I lost my temper with a general who had failed to follow orders. My anger flared, and harsh words were spoken. The general looked crushed, not because of my words, but because he had always respected my calm demeanor. I realized then that my anger had not only hurt him, but had diminished me in his eyes. I apologized, not because I was wrong in my critique, but because I was wrong in my delivery. From that day forward, I resolved to better control my emotions, to lead by example, not by fear. Mastering your emotions is like training a wild horse. It bucks, it kicks, it resists. But with patience, with persistence, with a calm, steady hand, it can be tamed. And once it is, it becomes a powerful ally, a loyal companion that will carry you through the storms of life with grace and dignity. And sometimes, a little humor goes a long way. I remember a time when a philosopher friend of mine, a man named Gaius, faced a rude heckler in the marketplace. Instead of getting angry, Gaius simply smiled and said, "My friend, if you knew all the things wrong with me, you'd have even more to criticize." The crowd erupted in laughter, and the heckler was disarmed. Humor, you see, is a wonderful tool for diffusing tension, for turning anger into laughter, reminding us all not to take ourselves too seriously. So, my friends, as you go about your daily lives, remember this. Anger is a natural emotion, but it need not control you. When you feel it rising, take a moment to pause, to breathe, to reflect. Ask yourself, is this reaction serving me? Is it making me stronger, wiser, better? And if the answer is no, choose a different path. Choose calmness, choose reason. Choose to master your emotions rather than be mastered by them. By doing so, you will not only change how others see you, but you will change how you see yourself. You will become the kind of person others look to in times of trouble. A person of calm authority, steady wisdom. And that, my friends, is the mark of a true Stoic. 2. Live with integrity. Integrity is a word often spoken but rarely understood in its truest form. To live with integrity means to align your actions with your word, to let your values guide your every decision. It is to be a person of your word, even when it is inconvenient or when no one is watching. But why, you might ask, does this matter so much? Because integrity is the foundation upon which trust is built, and trust is the currency of all human interaction. Let me share with you a story from my time as emperor. There was a senator, a man of wealth and influence, who approached me with a request. He wanted a favor, something that would benefit his own interests greatly, but would be at odds with the laws of Rome and, more importantly, with the principles I held dear. He offered gifts, spoke in flattering tones, even hinted at the support he could provide me in the future. I listened patiently, and when he was finished, I simply said, "I cannot grant you this, for it would betray the trust of the people and my own conscience." His face fell, and he left in silence, but word of this interaction spread quickly through the Senate. Some thought me foolish for turning down such an offer. Others, however, began to look upon me differently. They saw a ruler who could not be swayed by bribes or flattery, a man whose word was as solid as marble. They began to trust me more, and in that trust, I found a greater strength than any favor could have ever brought. Now imagine you are a Roman merchant, dealing in fine silks and spices. A customer comes to you, eager to buy your finest wares. In examining the goods, they notice a slight defect. It is minor, almost unnoticeable, and you could easily dismiss it, assuring them that all is well. But instead, you point out the flaw yourself and offer a fair discount. Customer, taken aback by your honesty, not only buys from you but tells others of your integrity. Your reputation grows, not as a merchant who sells goods, but as a merchant who sells trust. And that, my friends, is worth more than any single sale. Or consider a Roman craftsman, a builder known for his skill in constructing homes. He is approached by a wealthy client who wishes to cut corners to save costs. Using cheaper materials, skipping essential structural supports. The builder knows that to agree would compromise the safety of the home, but the offer is tempting, payment generous. Still, he refuses. He explains, "I build not just for today, but for tomorrow. My work must stand the test of time, just as my name must stand in the community." The client, though disappointed, respects the builder's resolve and ultimately decides to follow his advice, recognizing that true quality cannot be compromised. Integrity is about making the right choices, even when they are difficult, even when they are not in your immediate best interest. It is about doing what is right, not what is easy. When people see that you live by this principle, they see someone they can rely on, someone they can trust. Your word becomes valuable. Your actions speak louder than any promise. But living with integrity is not just about the big decisions. It is in the small, everyday choices as well. It is in returning the extra change the shopkeeper mistakenly gave you. It is in standing by a friend, even when others turn away. It is in speaking the truth, even when a lie would be more convenient. It is in these moments that your character is revealed, not just to others, but to yourself. I remember once during a campaign, one of my generals came to me with a report of a great victory. He spoke of his own bravery, his strategic brilliance. I listened, praised him, and sent him on his way. But later, I heard a different version of events from one of the soldiers, a version that placed the true heroism on a different officer, a man of lower rank. I could have let it pass, allowed my general to bask in his moment of glory, but that would have been a betrayal of my own principle. Instead, I called both men before me and publicly acknowledged the truth. The general was embarrassed, but he learned a valuable lesson that day. That honor and integrity matter more than accolades. And sometimes integrity requires a sense of humor. Once, a scribe in my court, a young man eager to impress, brought me a draft of a decree. It was filled with flowery language, excessive praise, and exaggerated claims. I smiled and said, "Young man, it is better to be honest and concise than to embellish the truth. Let our actions speak for themselves, not our words." He blushed, but he understood, and his future work reflected a newfound clarity and honesty. So I ask you, how do you want to be seen by others? As someone who sways with the wind, who says one thing and does another? Or as someone who stands firm, who lives with integrity in every action, in every word? Remember, integrity is not a one-time act. It is a habit, a way of life. It is the foundation upon which respect is built and upon which trust is maintained. By living with integrity, you do more than just change how others see you. You change how you see yourself. You become a person of honor, a person of virtue, a person who can be relied upon in times of both calm and crisis. And that, my friends, is the greatest legacy one can leave. 3. Embrace simplicity. In a world filled with endless distractions and the constant pursuit of more wealth, more status, more possessions, there is a profound wisdom in the practice of simplicity. To embrace simplicity is to recognize that true contentment does not come from the accumulation of things, but from the clarity of a mind unburdened by excess. It is to understand that a life of simplicity is a life of freedom. Let me share with you a lesson I learned early in my reign. As emperor, I was surrounded by opulence, lavish banquets, elaborate garments, grand palaces. It was all too easy to be swept away by the allure of luxury, believe that such things were a measure of success, of happiness. But I often found myself feeling hollow, unfulfilled, as if I were chasing shadows. It was then that I turned to the teachings of Stoicism, which reminded me of the value of a simple life. I began to strip away the unnecessary. I reduced the extravagance of my meals, favoring simple, wholesome foods. I chose plain garments over ornate robes. I spent more time in the quiet gardens of my palace, where the beauty of a single flower could provide more joy than all the riches of Rome. And you know what I discovered? Profound sense of peace. By embracing simplicity, I found that my mind was clearer, my decisions more focused, my spirit lighter. Now, some might say, but you are the emperor. You can afford to live simply. And yes, that is true. But simplicity is not about wealth or poverty. It is a state of mind, a choice to focus on what truly matters and to let go of what does not. Imagine a Roman merchant, constantly seeking to expand his business, to acquire more and more. He is always busy, always stressed, always anxious. He thinks that by having more, he will find happiness. But instead, he finds himself trapped in a never-ending cycle of desire and dissatisfaction. But if he were to embrace simplicity, focus on quality rather than quantity, on service rather than profit, he might find a different kind of success. A success measured not in gold, but in contentment, in the satisfaction of a job well done, of a life well lived. He might find that by having less, he actually has more. More peace, more joy, more freedom. Consider also the life of a Roman soldier. He is trained to carry only what he needs, to travel light, to be agile and ready for any challenge. He does not burden himself with unnecessary gear, for he knows that every extra pound will slow him down, will make him vulnerable. So too must we live our lives, by shedding the excess, the needless possessions, the superficial desires, the constant need for more. We become lighter, more agile, more free. There's a story of a Stoic philosopher, contemporary of mine, who was known for his simple lifestyle. He lived in a modest home, wore simple clothes, and ate plain meals. One day, a wealthy man visited him and, seeing his humble surroundings, asked, "How can you live like this?" The philosopher replied, "I am richer than you, for I have everything I need and nothing more." The wealthy man was puzzled, but as he left, he began to understand. He saw that the philosopher's wealth was not in material possessions, but in his freedom from desire, contentment with what he had. To embrace simplicity is also to embrace humility. It is to recognize that we do not need to impress others with our wealth, our possessions, our status. It is to understand that true greatness comes from within, from the strength of our character, clarity of our mind, purity of our heart. When we live simply, we are not distracted by the pursuit of things that do not matter. We are free to focus on what does, our relationships, our purpose, our growth. And yes, there is a certain humor in simplicity. I once attended a banquet where the host, eager to impress, had prepared a feast of such extravagance that it was almost comical. There were dishes I could not even pronounce, let alone recognize. And yet, amidst all this abundance, I found myself craving a simple loaf of bread, a bit of cheese, a glass of water. I could not help but laugh at the absurdity of it all, that in our pursuit of more, we often overlook the simple pleasures right in front of us. So my friends, I urge you to consider the value of simplicity in your own life. Look around you. What are you holding on to that no longer serves you? What are you pursuing that does not bring you true joy? What burdens have you taken upon yourself that you do not need to carry? Let them go. Embrace simplicity. Focus on what truly matters, and you will find a sense of peace, a sense of freedom that no amount of wealth or status can provide. Remember, as I have often reminded myself, very little is needed to make a happy life. It is all within yourself, in your way of thinking. By embracing simplicity, you not only change how others see you, but you change how you see yourself. You become a person of clarity, purpose, of true contentment. And that, my friends, is the essence of a life well lived. 4. Cultivate inner peace. In a world that seems to be in constant turmoil, where every moment is filled with noise, demands, and distractions, the greatest achievement one can attain is inner peace. But how does one find peace in a world that is always trying to pull you in different directions? The answer, my friends, lies not in the world around us, but in the world within us. Let me take you back to a time during my reign when the empire was in a state of unrest. Enemies threatened our borders, dissent brewed within the Senate, and even among the people of Rome, there was a growing discontent. Every day brought with it new challenges, new crises. Advisors would come to me with anxious faces, bearing news that would make even the bravest of men tremble. It would have been easy, indeed natural, to let fear, anxiety, and frustration take over, to be swept away by the waves of uncertainty and doubt. But I learned early on that to lead with strength, I must first find calm within myself. I would retreat to the gardens of my palace, place of quiet and solitude, away from the clamor of the court and the weight of my responsibility. There, among the olive trees, I would sit and breathe deeply. I would remind myself of a simple truth, the tranquility that comes when you stop caring what they say, or think, or do, only what you do. Imagine for a moment a great oak tree, standing tall and strong in the midst of a raging storm. The wind howls, the rain beats down, yet the tree remains unmoved. It bends with the wind, but does not break. Its roots are deep, its foundation strong. This is the essence of inner peace. It is not the absence of chaos, but the ability to remain calm, centered, and unshaken in the face of it. Consider the life of a Roman soldier on the battlefield. In the heat of combat, with arrows flying and swords clashing, he must maintain his focus, his composure. Panic is his greatest enemy. If he allows fear to overtake him, he loses not only his ability to fight, but his very chance of survival. But if he can find a moment of calm within himself, even amidst the fury of battle, he can see clearly, act decisively, and turn the tide in his favor. His calmness becomes his greatest weapon. Or think of a Roman mother tending to her home and children, her days filled with endless tasks and demands. She is pulled in 1,000 directions, her patience tested at every turn. Yet she knows that if she lets frustration rule her, she will not find the joy in her work, nor the love in her heart. So she takes a moment each day to breathe, to center herself, She finds peace in the simple act of being present, focusing on one thing at a time, of finding beauty in the mundane. But achieving inner peace is not a passive act. It is an active choice. It requires practice, patience, and a willingness to let go of the things that do not serve you. It is about learning to detach from the noise, the chaos, the distractions, and to find a stillness within yourself. It is about cultivating a mindset that is not easily swayed by the external world, that remains focused on what is truly important. I often found humor in this pursuit of peace. There was a time when, during a particularly heated debate in the Senate, one of my advisors whispered to me, "How do you remain so calm amidst all this madness?" I smiled and replied, "By reminding myself that their words are but wind, and I am but a rock upon which they break." We laughed, and in that laughter we found a brief moment of peace, even in the midst of chaos. So how do you cultivate inner peace in your own life? Start by creating moments of stillness, no matter how brief. Take a walk in nature, find a quiet corner to sit and reflect. Breathe deeply. Remind yourself that the world will always be filled with noise, with chaos, with distractions. But you have the power to choose how you respond. You have the power to find peace within yourself. Remember, as I have often written in my meditations, the happiness of your life depends upon the quality of your thoughts. Choose thoughts that bring you peace, that calm the storm within. Practice this daily, and you will find that no matter what life throws at you, you can remain calm, centered, and in control. Inner peace is not a destination, but a journey, a practice, a way of life. Embrace it, and you will change not only how others see you, but how you see the world. For it is through inner peace that we find our greatest strength, our greatest clarity, and our greatest joy. 5. Practice humility. In a world that often celebrates pride and self-importance, there is a quiet strength in humility. To practice humility is to recognize that we are all but small parts of a much greater whole, that our successes are as much the product of those around us as they are of our own effort. It is to understand that true wisdom comes not from proclaiming what we know, but from acknowledging what we do not know. I have often found myself in the grand halls of the Senate, surrounded by men of great ambition and pride. They spoke loudly of their achievements, of their conquests and victories, eager to impress. But I have always found that the most respected leaders were those who spoke with humility, who acknowledged their faults as readily as their strength. It was they who earned the trust of their peers, who could admit when they were wrong, and who were open to learning and growth. I learned that to lead with humility is not to show weakness, but to show wisdom. Let me share a story from my early years as emperor. I was still learning the ropes of leadership, still eager to prove myself. During a council meeting, I was quick to offer my opinion on a matter of state. My voice was confident, my tone assertive. But then an older, wiser advisor gently pointed out a flaw in my reasoning. I could have dismissed him, could have let my pride dictate my response. But instead, I chose humility. I paused, considered his words, and realized he was right. I thanked him for his insight, and the council moved forward with a better plan because of it. In that moment, I understood something important. Humility opens the door to wisdom. It allows us to learn from others, to see beyond our own perspective, to grow in ways that pride would never permit. It shows others that we are willing to listen, to learn, to adapt, and in doing so, it earns us their respect, their trust, their loyalty. Imagine a Roman artisan, skilled in his craft, but humble in his demeanor. He knows the value of his work, but he does not boast. He does not seek praise for every piece he creates. Instead, he lets his work speak for itself. When a young apprentice makes a mistake, he does not scold him harshly. Instead, he teaches him patiently, understanding that he too was once a beginner. This humility makes him not just a great artisan, but a great mentor. The apprentice learns not just the craft, but also the virtue of humility, the importance of patience and understanding. Or consider the story of a Roman general, celebrated for his victories in battle. It would be easy for him to let his success go to his head, to see himself as invincible, untouchable. But this general knows better. He knows that every victory is a result of the collective effort of his soldiers, his advisors, even the citizens who support the war efforts from home. He recognizes that luck and circumstance play their parts as well. And so when he addresses his troops, he does not speak of his own glory, but of their courage, their dedication, their sacrifice. He practices humility, and in doing so, he earns the unwavering loyalty of his men. There is a certain humor in humility as well. I recall a time when a young senator, full of confidence and ambition, challenged me in a debate. He was eloquent, passionate, but also a bit arrogant. After his speech, he looked at me expecting a sharp rebuttal. Instead, I simply smiled and said, "You may be right, young man. I am always learning, even from those younger than myself." The room erupted in laughter, not at him, but with him. In that moment, he learned a valuable lesson in humility, and I gained his respect without saying much at all. Humility is about seeing yourself not as above others, but as one with others. It is about recognizing that we all have something to learn, that we all have room to grow. It is about being open to feedback, criticism, to change. When you practice humility, you show others that you are not only confident in your strengths, but also aware of your weaknesses. This awareness makes you approachable, relatable, and most importantly, respected. So my friends, ask yourselves, how do you respond when someone challenges your views? How do you handle praise and criticism? Do you allow your pride to dictate your actions, or do you choose humility? Remember, humility is not about thinking less of yourself. It is about thinking of yourself less. It is about putting the needs of others before your own, about serving the greater good, about striving for excellence, not for recognition, but for the sake of doing what is right. By practicing humility, you change not only how others perceive you, but also how you perceive yourself. You become a person of wisdom, of integrity, true greatness. And that, my friends, is the legacy that will endure far beyond any title, any position, any achievement. 6. Seek wisdom constantly. To seek wisdom constantly is to embark on a journey that has no end. It is to recognize that true knowledge is never complete. There is always more to learn, more to understand, more to explore. In the ever-changing landscape of life, those who seek wisdom are the ones who find themselves not only prepared for what comes, but also enriched by every experience, every encounter, every moment. Let me take you back to a time early in my reign when I was still learning the ways of leadership. Surrounded by seasoned advisors, scholars, and philosophers, I often found myself humbled by the depth of their knowledge and experience. I could have easily settled into the comfort of my position, confident in my authority, content with what I knew. But I understood that true leadership required more than just power, required wisdom. And wisdom, I knew, could only be acquired through constant learning. Each day, I set aside time to read, to study, reflect. I read the works of great philosophers, studied the histories of those who came before me, and sought counsel from wise men and women. I would sit with my advisors, not as an emperor giving orders, but as a student eager to learn. I would ask questions, challenge my own beliefs, and listen deeply. I knew that in the pursuit of wisdom, there was no room for ego, no place for pride. Consider a story of a Roman scholar dedicated to the study of natural philosophy. Day and night, he pored over texts, observed the stars, studied the behavior of animals. One day, a young student asked him, "Master, when will you know enough?" The scholar smiled and replied, "The day I stop asking questions is the day I cease to be wise." This, my friends, is the essence of seeking wisdom. Always remain a student, to never become complacent in one's knowledge, to constantly strive for a deeper understanding of the world and oneself. Or imagine a Roman craftsman skilled in his trade, known throughout the city for his beautiful pottery. One might think that with his reputation, he would be satisfied, content with what he knew. But each day he experiments with new techniques, seeks out other craftsmen to learn from, and studies the ancient texts on his craft. He knows that there is always a new way to shape the clay, a new glaze to perfect, a new form to create. His work is ever evolving, ever improving, because he understands that the pursuit of mastery is a lifelong journey. I have often found that those who seek wisdom with humility and openness are the ones who are most respected, not because they know everything, but because they are willing to admit that they do not. They are willing to learn from anyone, from a child, from a servant, from an enemy. They see every person, every situation, as an opportunity to gain new insights, grow in understanding. There is a certain humor in this as well. I remember a time when a young senator, full of confidence and bravado, approached me and said, "Emperor, I have studied all there is to know about governance." I chuckled and replied, "Then you have much to unlearn, my friend, for the wise man knows that he knows nothing at all." The senator looked puzzled, but over time, he began to understand that wisdom is not about having all the answers, but about being open all the question. So, how can you seek wisdom constantly in your own life? Start by cultivating curiosity. Ask questions, lots of them. Read widely, not just within your field, but beyond it. Engage in conversations with people who challenge your views, who push you to think deeper, to see things from different perspectives. Reflect on your experiences, learn from your mistakes, and never be afraid to say, "I don't know, but I want to learn." Remember, as I have written in my meditations, if someone is able to show me that what I think or do is not right, I will happily change, for I seek the truth, which never harmed anyone. Be open to change, to growth, to new ideas. Be willing to adapt, to evolve, to learn. This is the path to true wisdom. By seeking wisdom constantly, you not only enrich your own life, but also inspire others to do the same. You become a beacon of knowledge, a source of insight, a person whom others turn to for guidance and understanding. And in doing so, you change how others perceive you, not as someone who has all the answers, but as someone who is always seeking them. This, my friends, is the mark of a true Stoic, a lifelong learner, perpetual student of life. 7. Show compassion and empathy. In a world where it is all too easy to judge, to criticize, to dismiss the struggles of others, there is a profound power in showing compassion and empathy. To walk in another's shoes, to feel with their heart, understand their pain. This is not just an act of kindness, but an act of wisdom. It is to recognize that we are all connected, all part of a larger human family, all deserving of understanding and respect. I remember a day when I was walking through the streets of Rome, disguised as an ordinary citizen. I came across a group of men arguing over a spilled cart of goods. Their voices were loud, their faces flushed with anger. It would have been easy to judge them, to dismiss their quarrel as trivial. But instead, I approached them and asked, "What has caused such distress among you?" They paused, surprised by my calm demeanor, and explained that the cart belonged to a young merchant who had lost his father and was struggling to make ends meet. The spilled goods meant a day without income, a day without food for his family. In that moment, I could feel his pain, his frustration, his fear. I could see the situation not just from the outside, but from within. I reached out and helped him gather his goods, and soon others joined in. Anger dissolved, replaced by a shared sense of compassion. And as we worked together, I realized that empathy is not just about understanding another's pain. It is about being moved to act, to help, to heal. Consider a Roman soldier, weary from battle, who encounters an enemy combatant on the battlefield, wounded and pleading for mercy. The soldier could easily deliver the final blow, end his opponent's life without a second thought. But instead, he pauses. He sees the fear in the enemy's eyes, the desperation, the humanity. He remembers that his opponent too has a family, hopes, and dreams. He chooses instead to spare the man's life, to show mercy, to demonstrate that even in war there is room for compassion. This act of empathy changes how his comrades see him, not as a ruthless warrior but as a man of honor, of depth, understanding. Or think of a Roman teacher, faced with a student who struggles to learn, falls behind, who is often ridiculed by his peers. The teacher could easily focus on the brighter students, could easily let this one fall by the wayside. But instead, he takes the time to understand the student's difficulty, to see the challenges he faces at home, the burdens he carries in his heart. Teacher shows patience, offers extra help, and slowly, the student begins to blossom. The other students take notice and start to offer their support, creating a more inclusive and empathetic environment. This, my friends, is the ripple effect of compassion. I have often found humor in the unexpected moments of empathy. There was a time when a beggar approached me, demanding rather than asking for a coin. My guards were ready to push him away, teach him a lesson in humility, but I stopped them. I smiled at the man and said, "You must have great courage to demand from a stranger. Tell me, what makes you so bold?" The beggar, taken aback, softened his tone and shared his story of hardship. I listened, not just with my ears but with my heart, and I realized that sometimes beneath the roughest exteriors, there are the most fragile souls. I offered him a coin and a kind word, and he left with more than he came for. Not just money, but dignity. Empathy is not a weakness, it is a strength. It requires courage to open oneself up to the pain of others, to allow oneself to be touched by their suffering. It requires wisdom to understand that by helping others, we help ourselves, for in lifting others, we elevate our own spirit. When we show empathy, we break down the barriers that divide us. We build bridges of understanding, connection, love. So how can you show compassion and empathy in your own life? Start by listening, truly listening, not just to the words others speak, but to the emotions behind them. Try to see the world through their eyes, feel with their hearts. Offer a helping hand, kind word, a gesture of understanding. Remember, everyone you meet is fighting a battle you know nothing about. Your empathy could be the light that guides them through their darkest hour. As I have often reminded myself, wherever there is a human being, there is an opportunity for kindness. Practice empathy, show compassion, and you will find that not only do others see you differently, but you begin to see yourself differently as well. You become a source of comfort, of support, healing. And in doing so, you change the world, one act of kindness at a time. By showing compassion and empathy, you transcend the ordinary, becoming a person of depth, of wisdom, of true greatness. This, my friends, is the ultimate Stoic virtue. Not just to be strong in oneself, but to be strong for others. And that, above all, is what will transform how others see you. As we conclude this journey through the wisdom of the Stoics, remember this. Greatness is not defined by wealth, power, or status, by the depth of one's character and the strength of one's spirit. Each of these 7 principles, from mastering your emotions to showing compassion, offers a path to transform not only how others perceive you, but also how you perceive yourself. Imagine living each day with a calm mind, clear purpose, and a compassionate heart. Imagine the impact you can have when you lead with integrity, embrace simplicity, and seek wisdom constantly. These are not just abstract ideas, practical tools that you can start using today to build a life of meaning, purpose, and inner peace. By embodying these Stoic virtues, you create a legacy of strength, wisdom, and kindness that will be remembered long after you're gone. So, are you ready to embrace these timeless teachings and become the best version of yourself? Remember, the journey to greatness begins with a single step. Make it count.